pay attention to Casey Crowder, 17 years old. Standing beside her parents' Dodge Durango on the side of U.S. Highway 165 in Dumas, Arkansas. It is 5:10 in the morning on Sunday, August 26, 2007. The gas gauge reads empty. The sun has not yet risen. Casey has less than 1 hour left to live. She does not know that somewhere on this same stretch of highway, a white Chevrolet Silverado with a distinctive stripe is already heading in her direction. The driver, a 40-year-old father of two named Kenneth Osborn, has just dropped his daughter off at work. He appears to be an ordinary man, a local over-the-road truck driver that everyone in this small town recognizes. But there is something different about Kenneth Osborn this morning. Something that will transform a teenager's simple car trouble into one of Arkansas's most haunting cases. Casey picks up her phone and calls her mother.
Until I find my daughter.
It would be the last time Melinda Crowder would ever hear her daughter's voice. Casey Crowder was 17 years old, a free-spirited teenager enjoying her last summer before senior year in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. She was the firstborn child to Melinda and Marty Crowder, and like many eldest daughters, she took her role seriously. Casey was a little bossy to her three younger brothers, picked on them the way any normal older sister would. But if anybody ever dared to mess with them, she was always the first one to jump in and defend them. Casey liked adventure. She did not like to sit in the house. She craved independence and possessed a confidence that her mother Melinda admitted she never had at that age. Casey was very sure of herself, always wanting to do things her own way. She was a tomboy through and through, equally comfortable getting her hands dirty as she was getting ready for a night out with friends. The Crowder family was deeply rooted in their faith. Sunday mornings meant church, Sunday school for the boys, and family time. It was a simple, stable life in small-town Arkansas, where everyone knew everyone's business and neighbors looked out for each other. Casey had a boyfriend named Adam who lived in Dumas, about 40 miles away. Like any 17-year-old in love, she wanted to spend time with him. But her parents, particularly her father, who worked night shifts, had their concerns about their daughter spending too much time away from home. On that Saturday evening in August, Casey told her mother a small lie. She said she was spending the night with her friend Brian and some other girls. Melinda was pleased. She thought it was good for Casey to spend time with girlfriends rather than always being with her boyfriend. The last words between mother and daughter that Saturday were simple and loving. Casey said, "I love you. I love you. See you tomorrow." She always told her mother she loved her. They were close, bound by the kind of relationship that made separation unimaginable. Around 8 in the evening, Casey headed out in her parents' Dodge Durango, a free-spirited teenager enjoying her last summer before senior year, driving 40 miles to see the boy she loved. What Melinda did not know was that Casey had no intention of staying with girlfriends. She was going to Adam's house in Dumas, and in her rush to get back home before her father returned from his night shift, she would make a decision that would cost her everything. Saturday night unfolded exactly as Casey had planned. She arrived at Adam's place. They went to a party, grabbed food at the local Sonic, and returned to his house. They smoked a bit of marijuana, spent time together, and eventually fell asleep. It was a typical teenage night, unremarkable in every way except for what would come next. Casey woke before dawn. Her father Marty would be home from his night shift soon, and she needed to beat him there. If he discovered she had spent the night with her boyfriend instead of her girlfriends, there would be consequences. At approximately 5 in the morning, Casey grabbed some money from Adam's wallet for gas and headed out the door. Just as she was leaving, Adam's co-worker Jimmy stopped by, hoping to convince Adam to go fishing. Casey exchanged brief pleasantries and drove off into the pre-dawn darkness. Jimmy was one of the last people to see Casey alive. At 5:10 in the morning, Casey's phone rang at the Crowder home. Melinda was surprised to hear from her daughter this early. Casey explained she had run out of gas on U.S. Highway 165 just outside Dumas, not far from a hospital. Melinda's initial frustration about being lied to quickly transformed into motherly concern. She offered to drive out and bring gas. But Casey, ever independent, insisted she could handle it herself. There was a gas station not too far away. She had cash. She would be fine. Those words, "I'll be okay," would echo in Melinda's mind for years to come. Casey assured her mother she would call when she got home, said "I love you," and ended the call. Between 5 and 6 in the morning, Casey made 4 unanswered calls to Jimmy, presumably hoping Adam's friend could come help her. Meanwhile, Kenneth Osborn was beginning his Sunday morning routine. The 40-year-old truck driver was a local figure in Dumas, a widower raising his 2 children on his own. He loaded his daughter into his white Chevrolet Silverado with its distinctive stripe and drove her to her job at a local nursing home. The route took him directly past the stretch of highway where Casey's Durango sat stranded. At approximately 6 in the morning, surveillance footage from a nearby Sonic drive-in captured Osborn's truck heading southbound toward Casey's location. 3 minutes later, the same camera captured the truck heading back northbound, traveling noticeably faster than before. The second pass was captured at the Dollar General at the intersection of Route 65 and 165. The truck made a right turn onto Route 165, heading toward a remote wooded area outside of town. A coworker of Osborn's daughter passed him on the road that morning and waved, as she did every day. Kenneth Osborn, usually friendly and always quick to wave back, ignored her completely. She noticed a girl slumped against the passenger window. At first, she assumed it was Osborn's daughter Holly, but when she arrived at the nursing home, Holly was already there. By 9 in the morning, Melinda Crowder was at church with her 3 sons. Trying Casey's phone, the call went straight to voicemail. She left a message asking Casey to call when she got home. Perhaps Casey was just angry about being caught in a lie. Perhaps she was giving her mother the silent treatment. Melinda tried to convince herself everything was fine. By noon, there was still no word. Melinda called Casey's best friend, Brian. Casey was not with her. Brian had not heard from her either. The afternoon slipped into evening. Melinda's worry transformed into panic. By almost midnight, she was hysterical, and her husband Marty had come home to find his wife in crisis. They jumped in their car and drove to Dumas. The 40-mile journey felt like an eternity. Melinda crying the entire way, her mind racing through every terrible possibility. At 1 in the morning, in the small sleeping town of Dumas, they made a haunting discovery. The Dodge Durango sat exactly where Casey had called from. Nearly 20 hours earlier, the doors were unlocked. Casey's belongings were inside, but there was no sign of Casey. Marty Crowder called 911. Within minutes, police arrived. They immediately checked the nearby Exxon station, just half a mile away, the obvious destination for a stranded teenager seeking gas. No one remembered seeing Casey. She did not appear on any of the station's surveillance cameras. Casey Crowder had vanished into thin air. An Amber Alert was issued. Arkansas State Police and the FB1 were called in. At first light, search parties fanned out from Casey's abandoned vehicle. Officers called local hospitals and jails. Hours went by without any leads. The first 24 hours of a missing person investigation are the most critical. Evidence is fresh. Witnesses remember details. Trails have not yet gone cold. Melinda checked into a motel in Dumas and made a vow. She was not leaving this town until she found her daughter. On Saturday, September 2nd, almost a week after Casey vanished. A National Guard officer searching 4 miles from downtown Dumas made a discovery that would shatter the Crowder family forever. Casey's remains were found in a remote wooded area. A plastic zip tie was wrapped around her neck, cinched down tight. It was a method of restraint so unusual that investigators had never seen it used as a weapon before. A belly button ring confirmed the victim's identity. 17-year-old Casey Crowder, the confident tomboy who defended her little brothers and always told her mother she loved her, had met a brutal end. Investigators believed they were dealing with an animal, a krill, uncaring, and unmerciful human being who had likely done this before and would do it again if not caught. With Casey's remains discovered, the investigation shifted from search to manhunt. FBI agents returned to the surveillance footage they had gathered during the week-long search, now viewing it through the lens of a confirmed homicide. The sonic camera footage became invaluable. Agents noted every vehicle that passed during the critical morning hours, cataloging colors, makes, and models. They identified a white truck with distinctive markings traveling southbound at 6 in the morning. Then northbound just 3 minutes later. The Dollar General footage confirmed the truck's path. After passing through town, the vehicle turned onto Route 165, heading directly toward the location where Casey's remains would later be found. The images from those 2 cameras held the last minutes of Casey Crowder's life. Investigators learned the truck was an early 2000s model Chevrolet Silverado pickup. The stripe was distinctive, but without a license plate. There was no way to trace the owner. Exactly 1 week after Casey disappeared, the FBI set up a roadblock at the exact location where her car had been abandoned. The theory was simple. If the driver traveled this route regularly, he would pass through again at the same time. At shortly after 6 in the morning, agents could not believe their eyes. A white Chevrolet Silverado with a distinctive stripe pulled up to the checkpoint. The driver identified himself as Kenneth Osborn, a local truck driver who confirmed he traveled this route every Sunday to take his daughter to work. Yes, he had traveled this same road the previous Sunday morning. Investigators noted the information and asked Osborn to come to the police station the next day. During the interview, Osborn appeared cooperative. He expressed sympathy for the Crowder family, said it was a terrible thing, noted he was a father himself and would be going crazy if it were his daughter. But between the friendly conversation, investigators noticed deep scratches on Osborn's arms. When asked about them, Osborn blamed his dog, Molly. To the trained eyes of FBI agents, those wounds looked like defensive scratches from a human being fighting for her life. Osborn claimed he drove his daughter to work and went directly home. He denied stopping anywhere, but the surveillance footage told a different story. When confronted with evidence showing his truck traveling northbound in the opposite direction of his home, Osborn changed his story. He claimed he had run out of cigarettes and turned around to buy more. Agents rechecked the footage multiple times. Osborn's truck appeared only twice that morning, once going south toward Casey's car, once going north toward the location where her remains were found. There was no third pass indicating a trip to buy cigarettes. He was lying. Cell phone records delivered another devastating blow to Osborn's alibi. At 7 in the morning, his phone pinged from a tower not far from Casey's abandoned vehicle. At 7:30, it pinged from a tower near where her remains were discovered. There was no ping from the tower nearest his house, disproving his claim that he went straight home. Even with the mounting evidence, investigators lacked enough for an arrest warrant. They needed something more. That breakthrough came when Osborn's daughter's coworker stepped forward. She had passed Osborn on the road that Sunday morning and noticed a girl slumped against the passenger window. She had assumed it was his daughter, but his daughter was already at work when she arrived. The eyewitness placed an unconscious Casey Crowder in Kenneth Osborn's truck. Armed with the eyewitness statement, surveillance footage, cell phone records, and the defensive wounds on his arms. Investigators arrested Kenneth Osborn. During hours of interrogation, Kenneth Osborn finally confessed. He admitted to taking Casey's life and transporting her to the remote location where her remains were found. He claimed he had stopped to help her with her car trouble, offered to give her a ride to get gas, but instead of stopping at the gas station, he passed one station, then another, and took Casey into the countryside. Investigators believe Casey realized she was in serious trouble and began demanding he stop the vehicle. She probably fought back, threatened to jump out. At some point, Osborn struck her. He admitted to putting the zip tie around her neck as a means of control. He claimed he panicked when she began choking. Investigators believe the reality was far more sinister. Casey's torn undergarments indicated Osborn's true intentions. He had brought her to those woods to assault her. Whether she was his first victim or simply the one that ended a run of unsolved crimes, detectives still do not know. Casey fought until the very end. Even with a zip tie around her neck, she scratched and clawed at her attacker, leaving the defensive wounds that would help seal his fate. In 2014, Kenneth Osborn was sentenced to 30 years behind bars for taking Casey Crowder's life, with a consecutive 10-year sentence for kidnapping. He has launched appeals, the outcomes of which remain pending. Melinda Crowder hopes he stays in prison until he passes away. She fears he will harm someone else if released. She does not want any other family to endure the pain she carries every single day. Pain that will last for the rest of her life. The Crowder family finds solace in their faith, believing their beautiful daughter is in a better place. But the grief never fades. Melinda will always carry the guilt of not getting in her car that morning, not driving those 40 miles to pick up her daughter. She knows, rationally, that she could not have predicted what would happen. But a mother's heart does not operate on logic. Kenneth Osborn took the beauty out of their lives. He created an aching hole in a father's and 3 brothers' hearts that will never be replaced. This case serves as a haunting reminder that predators often hide behind ordinary faces. Kenneth Osborn was a father, a neighbor, a familiar figure who waved at people on his daily drive. He appeared to be exactly the kind of person a stranded teenager might trust for help. Sometimes the monsters wear the masks of ordinary men, waiting for that one moment when a young woman runs out of gas on a dark highway and accepts a ride from a stranger. Casey Crowder deserved to see her senior year. She deserved to grow up, to find her path, to continue being the fierce protector of her little brothers. Instead, her story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the smallest towns where everyone waves at each other, danger can wear the most familiar face. May her memory live on. And may her story help protect others from the predators who hide in plain sight. This story has been inspired by and adapted from the true case of Casey Crowder. As documented in the acclaimed investigative series 48 Hours and Final Moments, the narrative has been carefully researched, written, and restructured for documentary storytelling purposes while honoring the facts of this tragic case and the memory of the victim. Our deepest condolences remain with the Crowder family.